Imagine waking up one morning and hearing the news that a naval ship, one of the strongest symbols of a nation's pride and protection, has been struck in international waters. The first reaction is shock, then confusion, and finally a question that lingers in every mind: what does this mean for the world? This is not just about Pakistan or Israel. This is about all of us, because when peace on the seas is threatened, it shakes the very foundation of global security and trade. I want you to think about something. The phone in your pocket, the clothes you wear, even the food on your table. Most of these things reached you through international waters. Now, imagine those waters becoming a battlefield. The ripple effect of one strike does not stop with two nations. It touches every home, every business, and every future. Today, I am not here to scare you. I am here to open your eyes to the bigger picture, to remind you that leadership is tested not in times of comfort, but in times of crisis. To show you that while nations may clash, it is the choices of the global community, our choices, that will decide whether this moment becomes a disaster or an opportunity for peace. So stay with me until the very end of this speech, because what I am about to share is not only about an incident in the ocean, it is about the lessons, the responsibilities, and the vision that the world must embrace right now. This is about you, me, and every nation that believes in stability, justice, and hope for the future. The strike on Pakistan's naval ship by Israel has shaken the geopolitical landscape in a way that very few incidents manage to do. It is not just about one vessel being attacked. It is about the ripple effects that follow such an act in a world already struggling with instability. The shockwave it created spread rapidly, reaching the highest levels of government and policy making across continents. Nations that may not have had a direct interest in South Asia or the Middle East suddenly found themselves compelled to react, because the incident is more than a regional matter. It touches the core of global security and balance. The world today is deeply interconnected. A strike in one part of the globe can trigger economic, political, and even military consequences in faraway places. For Europe, for example, the attack represents not only a new flashpoint in a volatile region, but also a direct threat to stability in global trade routes, energy security, and international law. The fear is that if such actions go unanswered or unaddressed, they could normalize a dangerous precedent where powerful nations feel entitled to strike beyond their immediate conflict. This has profound implications, especially for smaller nations that rely on the protection of international norms to ensure their sovereignty. This event also forces a reassessment of alliances and partnerships. Countries are now calculating where they stand and, more importantly, where they should stand in the face of such aggression. Some may view this as an opportunity to strengthen ties with Pakistan to counterbalance Israel's move, while others may tread carefully, avoiding entanglement in a conflict that threatens to spiral beyond control. Either way, the attack has left no room for neutrality. Silence itself is being interpreted as a position. The psychological impact of this strike cannot be understated. It demonstrates that conflicts are no longer confined to their traditional boundaries. When a naval vessel is hit, it signals vulnerability in the oceans. The spaces that were once considered secure under international treaties and guarded by the shared interests of all nations. The message to the world is stark. Power struggles can erupt anywhere, and no sphere is truly safe from escalation. The shock wave is therefore not only political but also symbolic, reminding the global community that peace is fragile and the line between stability and chaos is dangerously thin. The incident of Israel striking Pakistan's naval ship has raised profound concerns about the stability of global security and the strategic balance that holds the international system together. Maritime security has always been a cornerstone of peace, because oceans are not merely vast stretches of water, they are the lifelines of global trade, energy supply, and international cooperation. When such an attack takes place, it does not remain confined to the two countries involved. Instead, it questions the very foundation of freedom of navigation and the safety of international sea lanes. The Indian Ocean region, where this event occurred, is one of the most critical arteries of global commerce connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. Any instability in this area could disrupt supply chains, drive up energy prices, and impact economies far beyond the immediate zone of conflict. The strike also raises fears about escalation. Naval forces are not just defensive assets, they are symbols of national pride and deterrence. By targeting a naval ship, Israel has introduced a higher risk of retaliatory measures from Pakistan, potentially dragging other regional players into a larger conflict. In such a fragile environment, even a single miscalculation could spiral into a broader confrontation, threatening not just South Asia or the Middle East, but global security as a whole. The world has already seen how regional tensions, if left unchecked, can expand into global crises. And this incident is a vivid reminder of that reality. For Europe and other global actors, this attack also underscores the urgency of defending international laws and norms at sea. Maritime stability is not a luxury, it is a necessity for the functioning of the global economy. If countries begin to see naval vessels as legitimate targets outside of declared wars, then the entire structure of naval diplomacy, deterrence, and cooperation collapses. This is why the world is stunned, because such an act threatens to redraw the boundaries of what is acceptable conduct in international relations. The balance of power in this context is fragile, and the role of global leadership is to ensure that this balance is not disrupted further. If such events become more frequent, nations will be forced to militarize key trade routes, raising the possibility of accidents, confrontations, and blockades. This moment is therefore more than just a military strike. It is a warning of how quickly the strategic balance of the world can be shaken when aggression crosses into international waters. The world's response to the strike on Pakistan's naval ship is not just about condemning or supporting one side. It is about shaping the future of how international conflicts are managed. In times of crisis, leadership is tested not only on the battlefield, but in the corridors of diplomacy. The way global powers, especially Europe, react will determine whether the situation escalates into a prolonged conflict or whether it becomes a turning point for renewed dialogue and restraint. Silence or indifference would send a dangerous message that aggression on the high seas can go unpunished, weakening the international rules that have long safeguarded peace and stability. This is where the responsibility of global leadership becomes critical. Leaders are not only expected to protect their own national interest, but also to think beyond borders, considering the collective stability of the world. When one nation acts in defiance of international law, the credibility of global governance depends on whether others step forward to enforce accountability. For Europe, which has historically championed diplomacy, law, and multilateral solutions, the expectation is clear. It must play an active role in mediating and preventing further escalation. Failure to do so would not only undermine its moral standing, but also risk its own security, as instability in one region often finds its way into another. The incident also forces the world to re-examine the concept of deterrence. Military might has long been seen as a way to prevent wars, But when that might is used recklessly, it threatens to undo decades of fragile trust built through diplomacy. In such times, it becomes the responsibility of global powers to restore balance, not by adding fuel to the fire, but by calming tensions, ensuring dialogue, and rebuilding frameworks for cooperation. If the reaction of the international community is fragmented, then the message will be one of weakness, encouraging further aggression elsewhere. At the same time, accountability must not be seen as targeting one side unfairly, but as upholding principles that apply universally. If today a naval ship can be struck without serious consequences, tomorrow it could be a civilian vessel, and the entire notion of maritime security would collapse. Global leadership is therefore not about choosing sides, but about protecting the foundations of international order. The world is looking closely to see whether those with influence will rise to the moment, because inaction will not just impact Pakistan or Israel, it will erode the confidence of all nations that depend on stability at sea and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have witnessed through this incident is not just the striking of a naval ship, but the striking of global confidence in peace, stability, and international order. The shockwaves remind us how fragile the balance of power truly is, the dangers of unchecked escalation in maritime regions, and the urgent responsibility of global leadership to respond with wisdom, unity, and courage. This is a moment that calls not for silence, but for collective action to protect the principles that safeguard all nations, big or small. If the world can